Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome at the thematic conference, European and Eastern Mediterranean Security, Geopolitical Challenges and Opportunities, organized by the Democratic Rally. A personal thank you to the organizers of this event for the invitation to moderate the discussion. This event in honor of the Federal Defense Minister of Germany, Dr. Ursula von der Leyen, whose keynote speech we are all eager to hear. For the introduction speech on all angles of this conference, I call on stage retired Lieutenant General and an analyst on security, strategy and defense, Mr. Andreas Pendarasi.
Your Excellency, Madam Minister of Defense of the Federal Republic of Germany, dear President of the Democratic Rally, dear Minister of Defense, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great honor to have been invited by the President of the Democratic Rally to introduce today's conference in the presence of Dr. Ursula von der Leyen, the Minister of Defense of Germany. Due to limited time, I would like to refer briefly to the geopolitical challenges and opportunities arising for the two states, Germany and the Republic of Cyprus, and the urgent need to provide solutions and answers to the security issues resulting from both our bilateral cooperation and as our capacity as member states of the European Union. The Eastern Mediterranean, the security situation and the geopolitical developments in the wider region of the Republic of Cyprus define a spectrum of common threats, challenges, opportunities, and interests directly or indirectly related to European security. What characterizes our region and what are the issues demanding answers? The Eastern Mediterranean and the EU are at the center of an extended geographical space from which the main geopolitical challenges we face are emerging. The crisis in Ukraine, Turkey as a problematic partner of the EU and NATO, Iran's relations with the West. The situation in Syria is perhaps the main source of geopolitical challenges for the Republic of Cyprus and the EU. The situation in Lebanon, the situation in Gaza and the presence of terrorist organizations in Sinai, Egypt, the stability of Egypt, the crisis in Yemen and antagonism in the Red Sea, the security situation in Libya. The above-mentioned geopolitical challenges have led the region to reallocation of power and influence, an arms race and the acquisition of hard power, potentially a threat to the EU, intractable conflicts, instability in areas of particular interest to the energy security of the EU, instability in areas of particular interest to the energy security of the EU, radicalization, emergence or further strengthening of terrorist organizations and non-state actors in general, migration flows, arms trafficking, bypassing of sanctions, etc. In recent years, the Republic of Cyprus has broadened to a considerable extent its perception and approach in defining threats and geopolitical challenges. The Republic of Cyprus no longer looks at security in a simplistic way and understands that beyond its main threat, which is the military and hybrid threat posed by Turkey, its geography and its status as a member state of the EU and its good relations with regional and international actors require it to face a complex environment of threats posed by other state and non-state actors. At the time, the Republic of Cyprus conducts its foreign policy with determination, pragmatism, but also on the basis of principles to create a network of alliances to respond to the existing security dilemmas. Consequently,
the choice for Cyprus to cooperate decisively with its partners in the EU, the bilateral and trilateral alliances created in its broader region, its emergence as a pillar of stability in the region, but above all, the concrete choice for Western orientation and further integration into Western security structures, a position publicly supported by the French President of Democratic Rally, is a strong response to the geopolitical challenges I have referred to. I would like to refer particularly to the trilateral partnerships that are taking shape in the Eastern Mediterranean to demonstrate that three Western democracies, with their internal stability or as their core characteristic, ally and create a pillar of security and cooperation in the region, on which the EU and the West have to invest on. With the discovery of significant reserves of natural gas in its exclusive economic zone and the creation of appropriate infrastructure, the Republic of Cyprus aspires to contribute to the energy security of the EU and the diversification of its energy routes and sources. Ladies and gentlemen, I strongly believe that the speeches and discussion will follow will provide further useful insight and shed light on the increasing complexities and volatility of the region of the Eastern Mediterranean and the Middle East. Thank you for your attention.
This conference is organized by the Democratic Rally, an active member of the European People's Party. It's now time to call on stage for his address on the objectives and aspects of this conference, the President of the Democratic Rally, Mr. Avero.
Dear Minister of Federal Defense, dear Minister of Defense of Cyprus, dear friends, I would like to thank you for joining us today at the European and Eastern Mediterranean Security, Geopolitical Challenges and Opportunities Conference in honor of the Federal Minister of Defense of Germany, Dr. Ursula von der Leyen. In particular, I would like to thank the Federal Minister for being with us today here in Nicosia. Dear Minister, it's an honor for the Democratic Rally and me personally to welcome you to Cyprus and here to this conference. Nicosia is still, after 45 years from the Turkish invasion, the last divided capital in Europe after Germany's reunification. As a German yourself, you have first-hand knowledge of the impact of divided lands and especially divided capitals. Dear friends, this conference takes place at the time of multiple challenges across Europe and of political instability and conflicts in the periphery, in one of the most challenging yet most interesting neighborhoods of the world. Rightly, European citizens are calling for a more secure environment. Our region is rich, unfortunately, in conflicts and geostrategic challenges. The severe humanitarian and refugee crisis have increased migration flows. At the same time, the energy potential has turned the global energy spotlight on this region recently. And the recent announcements from ExxonMobil regarding Glaucus, in our exclusive economic zone, are telling of this potential. The geopolitical map is changing. New horizons for bilateral relations in the region are opening for Cyprus and the European Union, creating conditions for even wider synergies. The geopolitical challenges increase the need for a stability pillar in the region. The strategic objective is to transform the Eastern Mediterranean, to make the transformation from a region of conflict into one of stability, security, and prosperity. As such, regional and international actors like the European Union have a role to play to safeguard the stability of Eastern Mediterranean. Cyprus is an EU member state with full-fledged involvement in the European defence matters. It is full member of PESCO, a legally binding commitment of European member states for closer cooperation in security and defence. To achieve this enhanced coordination, increased investment in defence and cooperation in developing defence capabilities are key, and Cyprus is a committed member for this. Further, Cyprus places great emphasis on innovation in the defence and security area as well. As a full member of the European Defence Agency, it is connecting Cypriot universities and innovative companies with the European counterparts to take advantage of the 13 billion euros available for research and development in this area. Cyprus has a unique geostrategic location and long-lasting historical ties of friendship, cooperation, and mutual understanding with all neighboring countries, except, of course, Turkey. It brings to the European table our bridging role in fostering peace and cooperation in this volatile region by pursuing an outward-looking policy to promote regional cooperation. The trilateral cooperation mechanisms promoted with Greece and key players such as Israel, Egypt, Jordan, and Lebanon are core to this, and we are looking forward for further cooperation with France, Italy, and the United States. And serve as a model, as a regional dialogue, contributing to the consolidation of peace, stability, and prosperity. They also serve as a tool for achieving greater understanding and cooperation on all levels. There is no doubt that these initiatives will contribute not only to this regional security, but also to the security of the European Union and its citizens. Ladies and gentlemen, dear Federal Minister, the potential of the European Union to act as a security provider in the turbulent region is very valid and comprehensive. It goes beyond defense, focusing on cooperation, diplomacy, economic growth, stability, and societal security. Achieving the goals set forth within the European Union global strategy. By supporting the development of regional economies and enhancing the security cooperations with countries in the region. We, as Europeans, share the same values. To this end, we are moving forward to create those conditions that will enable common understanding of existing and, of course, of future challenges. We stand with our European family, the European People's Party, which is another pillar of stability of the European vision. We stand by to support the mandate of our leading candidate for the presidency of the Commission, Manfred Weber, to work for a better and safer Europe together, to help build a more united, more secure, more ambitious, indeed, a stronger Europe together. I would like to thank you again for your presence, which is a great privilege and honor for me and my party. And we are looking forward to the conference, the proceedings, and the discussions to follow. Thank you.
The European Union as a security provider in the Eastern Mediterranean, prospects for the future. This is the article we will now hear about in the address by His Excellency, the Minister of Defense of the Republic of Cyprus, Mr. Saracen.
First of all, I would like to sincerely thank my colleague for the strong words of solidarity to my country for the known matter of the exploration. Thank you very much. Dear Minister of Defense of Germany, dear President of the Democratic Rally, distinguished guests, it is a great pleasure to be here with you today and to have an opportunity to address you on the role of the European Union as a security provider in the Eastern Mediterranean and the prospects for the future. At the outset, I would like to congratulate the host of this conference, the Democratic Rally, for organizing this event and for raising these interesting issues regarding the defense and security. Historically, the Eastern Mediterranean has been at the epicenter of significant conflicts and geostrategic developments due to its central strategic location. During the 20th century, instability in the region resulted in profound historical events following the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, the founding of Arab states and the State of Israel, the Suez Crisis of 1956, the impact of Arab nationalism, and the Cold War, the Arab-Israeli conflicts. Moreover, the Turkish military invasion of Cyprus in 1974 made worse the instability of the Eastern Mediterranean and continues to do so as a result of Turkish threats and gunboat diplomacy. Indeed, the present security environment became even more complex due to the revisionist approach of Turkey and President Erdogan. Further to the regional interstate security relations, the complexity is aggravated by the severe humanitarian and refugee crisis. The refugee crisis and the expansion of terrorists to European territories have gradually developed into some of the most dramatic policy challenges confronting the EU, challenges with far-reaching consequences to the social stability and prosperity of European citizens. Further to the aforementioned challenges, the Eastern Mediterranean also attracts attention due to the potentially significant deposit of natural resources in its seabed. Indeed, the findings have attracted the attention of numerous states and international oil companies, and under the economic and political interests of the various states and non-state actors in the region. It is well known that natural resources can be both a blessing and a curse, and as such, both the regional actors and the EU must act responsibly and with determination to safeguard the stability of the region. Following this brief introduction, allow me to proceed by elaborating on the important roles of the European Union as a security provider in the Eastern Mediterranean. I strongly believe that it is necessary to elaborate on the concept of security as viewed through the European lens. The concept of security does not revolve solely around military might. Rather, it extends to cooperation, diplomacy, human development, economic growth, and social stability. Security is also about the promotion and protection of democracy, the rule of law, and human rights. In sum, the European vision for security is all about achieving the very goals set forth within the European Union global strategy. In a similar vein, the EU neighbourhood policy, launched in 2004, stressed the need to support and foster stability, security, and prosperity in the countries located in the EU's eastern and southern neighbourhood. It is for this reason that the ENP was effectively reviewed in 2015 and consequently embedded in the EU global strategy, thus highlighting the ongoing need for the EU to achieve stabilization of the neighbourhood by supporting the development of regional economies and enhancing the security cooperation with the countries in the region. In other words, an integral link exists between security and development, which is central to maximizing the effectiveness of the EU's external action both regionally and globally. Having said that, I firmly believe that in order for the European Union to truly realize its potential as a positive force in the Eastern Mediterranean security architecture, we need to first and foremost focus our collective efforts on the capacity building of partners in this tumultuous region. Consequently, in my opinion, existing and future common security and defense policy missions of the EU have a pivotal role to play in this regard. As underlined within the implementation plan of the security and defense, CSDP missions and operations with tasks in training, advising, and mentoring within the security sector are integral to the capacity building of partners. Thus, our goal in the immediate future should be to enable CSDP missions to contribute more systematically to the resilience of partner countries in synergy with the EU instruments and actors. Within this context, I would like to add the ongoing instability in Syria provides a tangible opportunity for the EU to prove itself in the field of post-conflict assistance. The Union has already expressed its readiness to assist in the reconstruction of the country, provided that a comprehensive, genuine, and inclusive political transition is achieved. The ultimate purpose should be to strengthen the resilience of the local population through the provision of education, jobs, and support for local civilian governance structures. In the discussion of the EU's role in the security environment of the Eastern Mediterranean, it will also be very useful to look at the experience of Cyprus in the region. Here, one must take into account two important factors. First, Cyprus' unique geostrategic location at the crossroads of Europe, the Middle East, Africa, and Asia. Second, the fact that we have maintained long-standing historical ties of friendship, cooperation, and mutual understanding with all neighboring countries, with the exception of Turkey, for well-known reasons. This is of tremendous value, which ought to be utilized to the fullest by reinforcing the existing close cooperation and planning with those of our EU partners, which have both the capacity and resources as well as common interests. At the same time, it should be quite obvious to all that a viable and functional settlement of the Cyprus problem in full conformity with our European values, principles, and the acquis will constitute a development of paramount importance. A united Cyprus, rid of foreign interference, able to exercise both an independent foreign policy and its sovereign rights without hindrance, will have reinforced ability to play its regional role even more effectively, thus enabling further the realization of a positive agenda for the benefit of both the region and the EU as a whole. Alternatively, the continuation of the current unacceptable and illegal status quo carries the potential for more regional instability, especially if Turkey continues to threaten and hinder the efforts of an EU member state to explore its natural resources. It is therefore self-evident, I believe, that a solution of the Cyprus problem, as I have just described, will not only serve the best interests of all Cypriots, it will also bolster the security conditions and stability in the Eastern Mediterranean, while also erasing the oxymoron of having an EU member forcibly divided with the presence of foreign troops on its soil by a third state, which aspires to close ties and cooperation with the EU. It is beyond question that the EU plays a key role in the defense and security architecture of the Eastern Mediterranean. This role is reflected through the contribution to Syria in particular, where the EU has mobilized all political and humanitarian tools in order to reach a political solution, and also is the main humanitarian donor for Syrians, with over 10.8 billion. In addition, the EU offered more than 1.3 billion in assistance to Lebanon since 2011, both for bilateral assistance and in response to the Syrian crisis. Furthermore, the Med7 initiative and the recent Sharm el-Sheikh summit between the leaders of the League of Arab States and European Union member states is tangible proof of the desire of the EU to play an even more active role in the security and stability of the region, which is mutually beneficial. It is evident, therefore, that the continued and upgraded engagement of the EU and its member states with the country of the Eastern Mediterranean and the wider Middle East will contribute to the implementation of the EU's global strategy and consequently allow the Union to be a force for peace and stability on the international stage, including in our volatile region, which, after all, is the southern neighborhood in the European Union. Thank you very much.
Our keynote speaker, Her Excellency Dr. Ursula von der Leyen, has been serving as Federal Defense Minister of Germany since 2013, and she is the first woman in German history to hold the office. She also chairs the EPP Defense Ministers meeting, which gathers EPP Defense Ministers ahead of the European Council of the European Union. All anxious to hear her talk about the future of European defense. Madam Minister, the floor is yours.
much good morning to everyone here in the room. Thank you, Mr. President of the Democratic Rally. Thank you, dear colleague, Savas Angelidis. Thank you for inviting me and having me here in the country, the place where Manfred Weber started his campaign in December 2017. And indeed, as you said, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President of the Democratic Rally, you said that we feel familiar with your feelings as a divided country. Indeed, for many, many decades, we have been a divided country too, and we know the bitter feelings, the pain for families, the difficulties in daily life that brings along a division of a country. But we've never ever forgotten how important it is to keep up the vision that one day the country will be reunited and unified. And I'm sure, looking at you and the way you are fighting for this common goal, one day you will have the reunification of Cyprus again. We were working for that indeed. And I'm happy to be here in a country that had enormous economic success over the last 5 years. I commend you for your leadership, for moving forward in such a way, because we know too, after the financial crisis, how difficult it was. So the way the economic success of this country is seen here is very much impressive. But today, we're here to discuss the topics of European defense and European defense in our European Union. Therefore, it's worth to have a look at our European Union. When I was born, the European Union had a different name, and it consisted of just 6 member states. Within a lifespan, standing here, today we see a European Union consisting of 28 member states. I was born and I grew up in Brussels, so at the time my playmates and schoolmates were Italian and Spanish and French, Dutch and Belgian. Therefore, from the very beginning on, I incorporated the European idea of united in diversity in my daily life in childhood. And to see how far the European Union has come since then fills me with pride and with joy. Because the Europe we live in today is one of a kind. It stands for long-lasting peace, 28 countries living in peace together. It stands for freedom, reconciliation, and friendship. The European Union is our answer to centuries of wars and violence all over our continent. We created a European Union with free trade all over the countries, all over the member states, a common currency, freedom of movement. Europe is a pure success story. Europe is an economic superpower if you look at the numbers and data. The European GDP is roughly 13 trillion euros. We are number 2 in the world, right after the United States. And Europe is a trade giant, if you look at the numbers too. We only represent 7% of the world's population. But we are managing approximately 15% of the worldwide import-export trade. Europe is a success story of free trade. The proof, you see that countries are standing in line to have free trade agreements with the European Union. In other words, we are respected and we know our interests as an economic power. I think now it is time to step up. To step up and to write another success story. To write the success story of a common European foreign policy and a common European defense policy. We've been speaking about it already. We heard other keynotes that we have many, many challenges around us in Europe, and we will be talking about it on the panel In a moment, it's the question of violation of international law. We have transnational terrorism. It's the big topic of cyber threats. We're talking about military power projection. From inside, we're talking about growing right-wing populism in Europe. And of course, there's the challenge of Brexit. You all know this list too well, and as we will be discussing this in a panel, I want to have a look at the European Union itself that has to give answers to that, because Europe has to stand up to these challenges. As European Union, we have not only to be willing, but we have to be able to act when it's necessary. And that's the reason why in December 2017, we created the so-called Permanent Structured Cooperation in Defense, the PESCO. For me, PESCO is the starting point of a European Defense Union. PESCO is a binding and ambitious framework of 25 European members. Together we fill capability gaps of our armed forces, and Cyprus is a shining example. You are a member in the project of military mobility, as we are too. You are a member in the project of the network of logistic hubs, as we are too. You have so many capabilities you can bring in for the project of military mobility and logistic hubs. You have a splendid geographic, strategically important location, and therefore it is so important to have you on board in these PESCO projects. We coordinate European defense planning, and thus we want to overcome the fragmentation we see in the European armed forces. If you look at 28 different armed forces, there's a huge fragmentation of weapon systems and armed forces. It is an intolerable waste of money and resources. We have to overcome this. Therefore, overcoming fragmentation, that's one centerpiece we do have. And we just started it. It is the new European Defence Fund. The European Defence Fund means for the first time ever, there's European money, European funding, spent on defense, on common research, development, and procurement. We're talking about 13 billion euros up to the year 2027 for European defense. This will be a huge incentive to procure together, to organize logistics, to train together, and to go on missions together. I want to be clear on this point what NATO is concerned. All these are important improvements that are of benefit to NATO too. NATO will of course always be number one for collective defense for its members. There's no doubt about it. But there are many, many fields around us I do not see NATO. But I do see the European Union that is being called upon to be able to act and to react in a crisis moment. For example, take our African neighborhood. We need more European commitment in our African neighborhood, and for that we need the tools, the procedures, and the structures to be able to act. And this is why we strengthen our ability to make a difference in regions where our security interests are at stake. This is the reason why we created the European Defence Union. This is why we remain transatlantic, but we are becoming more European. There's still a lot of work to do. For example, we have to define the European Union's foreign policy in the international arena, as we've done just in defense matters. If we look at our immediate neighborhood, your immediate neighborhood, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, many European countries are engaged in that region, are militarily engaged in that region. But where is the comprehensive European foreign policy of relevance? now that the political process gets more and more important in Syria. Sabas, you said it. We want to see a coherent European foreign policy that says very clearly, yes, we are committed to humanitarian aid in that area. Yes, we will engage in rebuilding the country, rebuilding Syria, but only if all refugees can come home, those who fled ISIL, as well as those who fled Assad. The political process means for me reconciliation, reconstruction, an inclusive political process, and the European Union has all the necessary means to promote it. And actually, you have the geostrategic location for logistics concerning this endeavor. We want to start in the moment as the political process is starting. In sum, our expectation from the next Commission is that we have a foreign policy, European foreign policy, that is one solid piece of music. And therefore, I think it is high time to seek the introduction of majority decisions in foreign policy in Europe. We have to speak with one voice. Dear friends, we are doing all this, speaking of defense, speaking of foreign policy, we're doing all this because of one fundamental belief. We share the belief in democratic values, such as the rule of law, most important for your country, plurality, tolerance, and the most important of all, the dignity of every single human being. And this is the reason why, to me, the European Union is indispensable in shaping the course of the world. Help you in shaping the course of the world. We know that Europe is a vanguard of vibrant multilateralism. We know that we do better when we work together. Here is the motto right behind me: stronger together. This is our lesson we have learned from 2 centuries of horrible world wars. And this is what the European experience is built upon. It's the construction of our European Union that is a shining example that multilateralism works. And the European Union is a responsible neighbor. Because we know that Europeans are safe and Europe is strong when our region is safe and at peace. Sabas, you said it. We know that we're better off if our neighbors are okay. We know that Europe is safe and strong when international laws and agreements are respected. We know that rules are not something to limit each other, but that rules are the guarantee that all of us play by the same game. And you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, in your introductory speech, the issues you have at the moment being in your naval areas and neighborhood, and with the exploitation of energy resources. Well, I think we want to show solidarity with all those countries who play by the rules. International law is fit for playing by the rules together and to have our. It is our history that shaped our European Union. We build our European Union on win-win situations and not on zero-sum games. We seek relations on the basis of mutual respect. And therefore, it's worth to take a brief look at our opponents, the far left and the right-wing populist parties. You know, be it Le Pen in France, or Geert Wilders in the Netherlands, or it was Farage in the UK, or it's the AfD in Germany, or Cinque Stelle or others in Italy, for example. You know the better than me, other right-wing populist parties. You know, independent of whatever name they carry, and they might have different issues to tackle, But there's one thing, they are united. There's one thing they have in common. They want to weaken Europe and they want to divide Europe. And we'll never accept that. And we'll never let that happen. This is for sure. And therefore, for us it's important that the world needs a strong and a united Europe. The world needs a strong support of multilateralism. This is our European Union. The world needs a global force for peace. It needs a global economy for peace. Because whatever the Brexit process will bring along, we will stay the second largest world economy and we will stay the largest market in the world. More than that, the world needs a superpower that sticks to its words and to the agreements it has signed. Countries that are undergoing major political change do know that the European Union stands ready as a trusted negotiator, a proven companion for transitions to democracy, and a strong trading and investment partner. The world needs a European Union that is reliable, predictable, solid, cooperative, strong, and united. And this is the Europe we are fighting for. This is the Europe we are campaigning for. These are the European values we are standing for. The Democratic Rally is standing for. Our EPP is standing for. In this sense, let's move on to a successful campaign. Thank you for your attention.
Minister, I would now like to call both Your Excellencies for our discussion. Face both of you. Thank you very much. Okay, my turn. So, Madam Minister, we've heard you arguing about why Europe needs to improve its ability to act in defense matters on behalf of its own security and stability. In these terms, what do you think should and could be the role of Germany and, of course, the role of Cyprus?
Well, thank you for asking this question because it shows that within Europe, nobody is able to be successful on its own. We know as Germans, with a large economy and a relatively large country, we know that we would not be able to fulfill our task or to tackle the difficulties and problems and issues we do have around us on our own. And this is the main experience we do have. Therefore, we know how valuable and important and precious the European Union is because this gives us leverage together to pursue our values and, of course, our interests too. And as you were asking not only about Germany, but also about Cyprus, it shows, as you said when we started our talks, you said very, very noble that you call yourself a small country. Yes, perhaps in relation to Germany, but you are an extraordinarily active country in PESCO, for example. I was mentioning the military mobility project or the network of logistic hubs. So the combination of, for example, in Germany and Cyprus working together in the European Union shows its leverage for the two of us. You bring in capabilities we do not have. We bring in capabilities you do not have. This counts or tells for all the other countries too. And therefore, this knowledge of the European Union, that what we call multilateralism, this is listening to the others, working with the others together, finding common ways makes us stronger in some than we would ever be if everyone would go on its own. Do you want to comment?
Yeah, it's true that when I have been discussion, I said that despite the fact that we are a small country, then I was interrupted because it is true and thank for this, and this gives us a new power to continue to contribute to the fulfillment of the Union actually level of ambition on this. And because we shall all the time remember and reminds us that we really want to work to promote peace and actually to guarantee security to our citizens. And this comes through PESCO programs, not only for the substance of this idea, but also on technical terms. And we are facing now, for example, some programs that as Cyprus, we do believe that we can contribute equally. Allow me to say this. And because of our geographical location, but also because of our belief that we share the same values and we act on this in order to provide the security to our citizens.
Talking, Mr. Minister, about the permanent structured cooperation a bit further, not only on what you described right now, I would like to ask what is your aim as Minister in working within this structure?
Okay, now it's on technical terms. We, of course, we want to develop our defense capability. And this, Cyprus, we know that we don't have the defense industry, but still, we are going to work very hard via modern technology, which also is combined with economies of scale. And we believe that we can contribute on this, and we are working very hard in order to be able to cooperate with Cyprus institutions, private sectors, with private sectors of other member states on this, and for funding of all these projects. And I believe that it's time, having discussed this for now almost 2 years, and we realize that everything moves very fast on these programs. Now is the time to come to certain products, and I believe that we are so close with the cooperation of the entities to succeed.
This is an example that may show it. For example, our first project in PESCO and funded by the European Defence Fund is a Eurodrone. And you might say, well, you can buy a drone in the United States or in Israel if you want to. That might be possible, yes. But what we want as Europeans, we want to develop the industrial knowledge and basis here in Europe. Because we know that the drone business in the civil economy will improve rapidly, and therefore it's important to have the industrial basis here in Europe. And as you said, you can, for example, add technological knowledge to this. This is the typical thing where we're working on. Or we're working on the next future combat air system, which will be the fighter jet of the next generation. It brings along a step up of the European industrial basis to new technologies we otherwise would never ever have, because we wouldn't have the funding for it. And history shows us that many revolutionary inventions came through this kind of funding. If you look at the United States, it was the American military that initially funded what we call the internet today. Or if you look at GPS, we would never have it if it weren't for the American, US military that funded the research on what today is GPS. And this is the mechanism why we are working together on having PESCO projects funded by the European Defence Fund, knowing that then our small and medium enterprises, our research startups, our industrial bases can benefit and can grow for the future prospects.
Give me a word for my next question, having also to deal with what you mentioned earlier in your speech about one of the threats that Europe is facing, cyber threats. And how do you see the future in that field?
Cyber and digitalization is the topic of the next decade. Already today, if you look at our complete weapon systems, whether it's a submarine or frigate or a fighter jet or a tank, it's swimming, rolling or flying software, if you put it that way. So any kind of, we have per day 4,500 cyber attacks on our networks in the armed forces in Germany. This is normal, and therefore to step up to build a digital architecture over the European Union by combining our knowledge in the European Union, to be able to secure our networks, but also to be able to work forward in protecting critical infrastructure, to be able, when being attacked, to have immediately crisis reaction teams that are able to respond, and a potential attack is more likely on critical infrastructure than on armed forces. So you immediately need to be able to pull together the human resources, men and women experts from the armed forces or the business sector that are able to answer a cyber attack. This is the topic per se. It's actually not only because I see the ambassadors of China, for example, the ambassador of Russia, for example. It is not only a question between state actors, but cyber is also a question concerning organized crime. And there we have, with countries where we, in other terms, have issues, if I may put it that way, we have a common ground that we all want to fight organized crime in the cyberspace. And there is a lot to do for all those countries who are willing to work together for the better.
Actually, it is true that as Cyprus also we are trying our best for this matter because we have our concerns. Just allow me, if there are people here from the Ministry of Defense, to believe that it's normal, the attacks, so we'll keep working on that. Yes. So, yes, we are having our concerns, and this is the reason we are trying to participate in many centers of excellence for these particular matters, and we give emphasis on this.
Okay, coming one example, for example, if you were speaking about the members of the Ministry of Defense keep working on cyber attacks, it's a matter of not only need to know, but need to share. We have to share knowledge very early. I take the example of WannaCry. You all have read about WannaCry. The damage was so extensive in WannaCry because we informed each other too late. So it's a matter of time often and of being informed, and therefore to sit together in a network and to be informed on a regular basis on what is coming up, what do we see as a crisis coming up, is crucial in the cyber topic.
Please allow me also taking this opportunity to say something which also indicates that how we have to work. During the discussions of some matters, I realized that we have to, as a good partners, allies, friends, brothers, we have to share all the information, but also our ideas and what we are thinking to tell, without saying, is that wrong or is that not wrong? So doing this every single day, it improves everything also in the matter of security.
Okay. Madam Minister, you mentioned in your speech earlier about the need for a stronger common foreign policy, and I would like you to comment on the absence of this policy in Syria, for example, and the post-war political process underway now. Europe, as the Minister said, is #1 humanitarian donor of Syria, but it's completely absent from this process. And discussion is underway between Russia, Iran, and Turkey, but we are absent. How would you comment on that?
Yeah. First of all, if we look at the European Union, you know, 28 member states have to speak with one voice. That, in other terms, said in other terms, if there's one country that does not have the same opinion as all the others, the High Representative is not able to say something on behalf of the European Union. Therefore, in many crises, you are kind of listening for what is the European voice, and there is no European voice. There's a Cyprus one, a French one, a German one, but where is the European voice? And therefore, we think that majority decisions might be the way in any kind of shaping foreign policy. You need to be present with an opinion. It will not always be to our pleasure, because it can be the situation that Germany has an opinion that all the others do not share. So a majority decision means we have to swallow the fact that Europe is saying something different than we would like to hear. So this is, therefore, I think we have to step up to move to the majority decision, and not, as it is today, unanimously. What Syria is concerned, indeed, we are now in a stage where the political process has to take place. You know the details. This is a group of experts here. I do not have to retell it. But one thing is for sure. Syria will not be rebuilt without a huge financial investment. I do not see that either Turkey, nor Russia, nor Iran will be able to do that. There comes in the potential role of the European Union. And this should come at a price. The European Union, yes, is certainly willing to rebuild and reconstruct Syria. But we want a political process under the umbrella of the United Nations that includes all ethnic and religious parties that are non-terrorists. We're talking of ISIL. This means in easy terms that with this investment, refugees that fled from Assad can come home, are safe, and have a perspective for the future. Refugees that fled from ISIL, the same, can come home, go to their hometown, and have a future there. And that over time, under the umbrella of the United Nations, a governance structure is developed that is inclusive to all groups. This is hard stuff. It's not easy to achieve, but I think we have to be aware as Europeans that we have a strong argument in our hands, and this is the reconstruction capability we have. I excluded humanitarian help because this has always to be there, independent of the difficulty of the situation. This is a primary humanitarian aid. We are doing this at the moment being, but Europe should have a strong voice in this process of reconstruction.
Okay. Coming back to PESCO, what is Cyprus' opinion in the procedure having closer relations with third parties?
Okay, you mean the first state participation in some of the PESCO programs? Okay, it is obvious that we need some countries, third states, to participate and contribute and add value to some of our PESCO programs. This is obvious. We need the expertise and we need the ideas and the contribution of these countries. But I need to
Can you name any?
I will tell you. It is obvious when we make certain criteria. So it derives afterwards. So it is necessary to be very careful and not to be like a custom, so it shall be on some exceptional cases. And then countries that they share the same values and principles of the other European member states. And if I go further, I can tell that these can be within some stages. So an agreed terms on technical agreements with the EDA, which is affected and plays a role to these programs. Also, if I may go further, I can say that a security agreement with the European Union. So if we put the certain criteria, then countries which will apply these, then easily they are welcome. And I can tell one country will insist. But after 31st of March, I can tell this. I'm saying. But yes, we have certain countries that we are really interested to cooperate with this.
Okay. I think it's a very simple story for all of us, and we are completely in line with that. First of all, PESCO is for the PESCO family. So, third-party countries are welcome as long as they add value and they don't add problems. We need them for the added value. And therefore, we have two layers that are important for us. The PESCO family is deciding unanimously on whether we invite a country to join, and then the project participants can decide too whether they want a country to be part of it. So every country, PESCO family country, can be sure there will not be access of a country that poses problems. That's one point. And the second is when we accept the country, which we want to have with us, then it has all the rights and the benefits, except for one point: it cannot veto the project it is in. And this thing is, I think, is fair for those who join. There are rules they have to abide to, and they will have to be welcome and add value.
In that aspect, Madam Minister, how would you comment on the trilateral agreements between Cyprus, Greece, and other countries in the region? How does Germany face this cooperation?
You have to explain me what kind of trilateral. I'm kind of not informed.
The philosophy is something is different with PESCO programs, different with cooperation on this. It is true that with via trilateral corporations in many aspects, and also for the matter of defense and security. For example, we have trilateral with Greece, Cyprus and Israel, or Greece, Cyprus and Egypt. We enhance our cooperation on operational wise, which is very substantial to maintain our forces at a high level, exchange information, exchange ideas. And also, we want to promote via these trilaterals the peace and stability to our region, because it's trilateral within the neighbor countries, and because stability brings prosperity and growth. This is the fundamental behind this.
Absolutely positive on the examples you just mentioned, because this is normal procedures for sovereign countries to have bilateral or trilateral agreements. If it increases the peace and the stability in the region, the better it is. And these are friends around us who play by the same rules, so completely understood. Absolutely.
If anyone from our audience would like to pose a question, feel free, if anyone, before I ask questions. Okay, Madam Minister, I would like your comment on the Brexit challenge, which you mentioned very briefly in your speech, but it is also important for Cyprus, knowing the relation between UK and Cyprus, and of course the British bases here on the side.
There are two different aspects. The first one is the overall Brexit, which is, we are very sorry, and it's a pity, but it's the decision of our British friends. To be honest, I am not able, like anybody else, to predict what's going to happen over the next 3 weeks, because this is a decision of the British Parliament. So we'll watch it. But I want to focus on our subject, which is the defense and security subject. And the paradox is, although Brexit is harmful and difficult for many topics in the economic sector, Brexit brought along that we are even closer in cooperation what defense and security is concerned. That because we became aware of the fact on both sides that it is crucial for us to be very, very close. Actually, in European defense, nothing had grown between the European Union and the UK, because the UK had always blocked more European defense. Therefore, nothing has to be disentangled, and there are no hard feelings. We move on now with the European Defence Union, but our British friends are very, very close at our side. Last week I was in the UK, so my British colleague, and they are eager, we are eager to have bilaterals, trilaterals, close cooperations, like you certainly will have your country too, and we do everything to have them in the European context as they wish, as partners on our side. They said already there will be certainly some European missions they are interested in, they would like to participate, so this is a good sign. We know when it comes to security, we are one solid block, ironclad together. This is very important for us.
I think I am in the same line, because from practical wise, when the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Cyprus sent in some directions of how to approach the Brexit, there is no signs for security and defense, meaning that it is indeed a matter that will not affect. I do believe that it will continue, and it will also be probably a good example for the third state participation for enhance our capability in the matter of defense.
Okay, coming again back to this defense union, Madam Minister, I would like to ask you, I was reading one of your last articles under the title, Europe is forming an army, and I would like to ask, to what extent do you see the actions taken by such a union in the conflict areas in the world?
Yeah. You might remember the beginning of Mali, or you might remember Ebola. Ebola was for me the crucial experience. Ebola was a crisis that was very rapid. We wanted to react as Europeans. We had neither structures nor procedures, so we were unable to react. And therefore, I was calling my colleagues in the European Union, how many hospital beds are you sending down with your military personnel? In what country are you going? What are you doing? Very ineffective, hands-on. And this showed in a singular crisis in the past that we were not able, when we are needed as Europeans, to react as Europeans. That's the reason why we're starting the work on the European Defence Union. Now, looking forward, I see that the more we have an increasing interoperability between our armed forces, the more we are well organized, logistic hub network, for example, the more we are building up what I call the army of the Europeans. An example is, for example, our Dutch friends with Germany. That's our experience. The Dutch have submitted their tanks to the European army, to the German army, as the Germans have submitted parts of their navy to the Dutch navy. So we are completely interoperable in this field, and this is an example how it could be in the future. The crucial point is, I think this is important, we stay sovereign when the decision on going on mission is concerned, because sending our men and women, the servicemen and servicewomen, in conflict areas is a very important decision that has to be taken on a national basis. But the way we interact, the way we are built up, this would be an army of the European that is at any time deployable to a field of conflict where we as Europeans want to be present.
Okay, to close up, I would like to hear, yes?
I may have a word.
Yes, sure. If you can, please stand up. Maybe you
I
can
say
start.
something from my experience as ex-minister of defense, but I will talk not as a politician, but as an academic. I'm more freedom.
Yes.
If we have PESCO today, to a very significant extent, we owe it to Ursula.
We had both of you, after your bilateral meeting earlier, talking about closer cooperation between Germany and Cyprus. I would like your last comment to be on this, starting with you, Mr. Minister.
It's confidential. Okay, listen. When something is obvious, it is not good to repeat it. I have this. It is true that we had a productive discussions, and it's a time to move forward, to enhance our cooperation bilaterally, and via this route, I believe that it will be benefit not only Cyprus and Germany, and also European Union as a whole, because the common interests that we have affect also the rest of the member states.
Yes, for me it's always a very valuable experience to be here, and as I saw my colleague now in 2017, but now with you, Savas, for us it's important. I feel that working together on European projects and on bilateral projects brings up the individual experience. I've learned a lot today from you what shaping the third-party access to PESCO is concerned. I learned from the Cyprus experience. Without your experience, I wouldn't have been aware of specific problems. So it is very important to be on a bilateral discourse to shape our European environment in a good way. Under the umbrella of the European security and defense topics, bilateral topics are growing too. So once again, thank you so much for being wonderful hosts for our Navy. This is so important for us, and yes, this is a very fruitful and enriching cooperation between our two countries.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes,
It
please.
was a great pleasure to have you here, and always you're welcome.
Thank you so much.